on, is it? It's better. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members. We will start. Welcome to the Cheltenham Borough Council Planning Committee being held on Thursday, the 23rd of January. My name is Councillor Garth Barnes and I'm the chair of the committee. The meeting is being streamed live to Cheltenham Borough Council's YouTube channel, and the recording of the meeting will be held for 4 years. If there are any breaks in the transmission to YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until any issues are resolved. If you are here to make a representation to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of the sound and video recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. Please be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation in the public gallery, and the recordings will be held by the council for 5 months. Please note, a fire alarm test is not expected, so if the alarm does sound, you should immediately make your way to the nearest exit. Okay, I start with item 1, apologies. I think we only have Councillor Mutton, who is on jury service at the moment, so we haven't had a replacement. Item 2, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from anybody? Nope. Thank you. Item 3 then is the agenda, is the declaration of independent site visits, and I just will say at this stage that in future we will be recording all members' interests who in the minutes for future information. So, do we have any declarations of independent site visits this time? No? Okay. Move on then, item 4, the minutes of the last meeting. We did have a member of the public wish to correct the minutes. And Rhian has got a message from Claire Hughes, our monitoring officer, to say why we are not going to do it. I don't know, Rhian, if you want to.
The message from Claire Hughes is that minutes are not intended to be a verbatim record of a meeting, and recordings of meetings will remain on the YouTube channel for 4 years if people do want to check the records. Her recommendation is that minutes should not be amended unless any of the members present take the view that they are not an accurate record of the meeting.
Thank you. So, are there any other members who have any issues with the minutes of the last meeting? If not, can I sign them as a true record? Yep. Thank you. There are no public questions on item 5, so we'll move on to the planning item, agenda 6, the land at North West Road, and I'll ask Chris Gom to introduce it for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is an outline application for the erection of up to 60 dwellings, which includes 40% affordable housing and up to 550 square metres of flexible commercial use, which is use Class E, on land to the north of North Road West at Grovefield Way on the edge of Cheltenham. So, as I say, this is an outline application. So it's important committee note that appearance, landscaping, layout and scale are reserved for approval at a subsequent stage if committee grant permission this evening. So committee this evening are considering the principle of development and the means of access to the site, because access is not a reserved matter. And just to clarify, in terms of use Class E, use Class E is a very broad class of development, which really includes most commercial uses. It's important to note from the report that the case officer, condition 37, does narrow that down to Class E, C, E, E, and Class EG, which is essentially medical offices, financial and professional services, offices and light industrial uses. So that's an important point to note. Whilst use class E is in the description of development there, that is narrowed down by one of the recommended conditions. So moving on to the site location plan. Obviously members visited the site on planning view earlier this week. It's located immediately to the south of the A40 Golden Valley bypass on the very edge of the borough. You can see it's close to the new Audi store and Costa coffee store, relatively new. The site itself is allocated for employment purposes in the Cheltenham Plan, policy EM1, and I'll come on to that. So moving on to the site location plan, which obviously shows the site's context in a bit more detail. So just to remind members of the site's context, so we have the BMW garage, or dealership rather, to the north, North Road west to the south, and that leads on to Badgeworth Road further to the west, and to the east onto Growfield Way. To the south, so in the southwest corner of this plan, are a number of residential properties on North Road West, as well as the Readings Community Centre. There were also some residential properties to the far west, at the end of Badgeworth Road. Members will be familiar with the site. To the immediate east of the application site, we have the new Audi store, which we can see here. The new Costa Coffee, which is also a drive-through, and then there's a quite a large nursery preschool building as well, and all of the various associated car parking and so on. As I was saying, the land occupied by these developments, so that element of the scheme that's already been constructed, so the Audi, the nursery, and the Costa Coffee, they are also part of the policy EM1 allocation. So in effect, what committee are dealing with is 2/3 of the site allocation, with 1/3 already built out. So moving on to just a quick run through of an aerial photograph. So this shows the situation on site at the moment, relatively recently. So we have the substantial BMW dealership to the north. You can see the Audi store and the nursery to the immediate east, and then North Road West running along the bottom of the application site, and then clearly Golden Valley bypass at the top there. So really it's all of the undeveloped open land to the south of the bypass there, and to the north of North Road West. So moving on to the parameter plans. So this is a high-level parameter plan giving an idea of the land use and green infrastructure arrangements on the site. Now, as I was saying, this is an outline application. The detail, well, the layout of the development is a reserved matter, but it's worth noting, it's important that committee note that condition 4, suggested condition 4 in the report, does require the subsequent reserved matters submission to be generally in accordance with these parameters plans. So in effect, that means that these parameters plans are part of the application and part of the permission that would be granted this evening if members are so minded. So just to run through the detail. So obviously this is a mixed use development. The yellow shows the commercial development zone. The pink shows the residential development zone. And then the green colour is essentially the sort of peripheral green infrastructure around the edge and public open space and so on. Moving on to the second parameter plan. This plan gives a high-level idea of the access and movement arrangements within the site. So this is essentially a layer on top of the land use plan. Again, the pink shows the residential uses and the yellow shows the commercial uses. A key point here, especially as access is not a reserved matter, the key point here is that the yellow commercial area is shown as being accessed via a continuation of the road past Audi, the way we entered the site on planning view. the residential element of the scheme, so the majority of the scheme in terms of land area, the pink element of the scheme, that's shown as being accessed via a new access from North Road West to the south. Also worth noting on this plan, before I move on, there are some various cycleways and footpaths, and probably of most importance is the footway to the north of the hedge line within the site, which will provide a connection to the rest of the town, or the rest of the urban area. So there's a footway running through the site, through the hedge, and then there's a crossing point shown here over North Road West, and then a connection to the existing footway at the access point to the community centre. And I'll show the highways detailed drawings in a moment. Again, this is the final parameter plan. So this just shows the building heights across the site. So orange is up to 2 stories, pink is up to 2.5 stories, and blue is up to 3 stories. And as I say, the condition 4 in the schedule of conditions requires the reserve matters submissions to be broadly in accordance with these parameter plans. So that is important to be borne in mind. So this is an illustrative master plan. The purpose of this plan is essentially for the applicant to demonstrate that how the site could accommodate the development proposed. So could accommodate up to 60 dwellings and up to 550 square metres of commercial. So this is illustrative only. If committee grant permission this evening, this plan will not be an approved drawing in the sense that they will be bound by it. A layout plan will need to be submitted at the reserve matters stage. I'll just touch on some of the details. As I say, it is an illustrative drawing, but just to highlight some of the details, you can see the new access to the residential element from North Road West. You can see the continuation and the car park serving the commercial uses from Corinthian Way to the immediate rear of the nursery. And you can see that the general style of development here is semi-detached and terraced properties. There's at least one detached property, I think, and there's also some apartments shown in the far southeast corner of the development. But as I say, this is an illustrative drawing. And again, this is another illustrative drawing. This shows the landscape master plan. Landscaping is a reserve matter, so this if committee grant permission this evening, this drawing wouldn't, the developer wouldn't be obliged to landscape the scheme in this way. Although I imagine it would be landscaped in a way that's similar to this, but nonetheless, it shows how the site could be landscaped. So moving on to the highways drawings. So these do form part of the application in a formal sense because access isn't a reserve matter. So here we can see the footway that will come through the hedge line on North Road West, an uncontrolled crossing. So a dropped curb and tactile paving, in effect, on North Road West, and then construction of a footway and crossing to connect to the existing footway at the entrance to the community centre. So this shows the proposed new vehicular access to North Road West. So the middle drawing shows that new access. You see the centre drawing there, and also we can see on this centre drawing a less detailed image of the pedestrian crossing. The top drawing shows that there's visibility of 149 metres towards Growfield Way, and the bottom drawing shows that there's visibility of 292 metres towards Badgeworth Road. So that shows the access, proposed access, and its visibility displays. Just run through a couple of photographs. Obviously, the land is largely open at the moment. There is some, what appears to be some informal storage on the site at the moment, but effectively it's an undeveloped field at the moment, and clearly members saw that for themselves on planning view. This is a photograph along North Road West. So this is immediately at the point of the new vehicular access, looking towards Badgeworth Road. So the new access would come through this this line of small trees here. And you can see the road there. And again, this is in exactly the same position, but looking in the opposite direction towards Grovefield Way. So the new vehicular access would come through the hedge there. And you can see the visibility down the road there. So the recommendation, Chair, is to permit, subject to the conditions, and there's an update sheet that will have been circulated with some slightly amended conditions, subject to those conditions and subject to the Section 106 agreement, the heads of terms of which are set out in the report. The main issues, I'll just run through these very briefly. Clearly they're in the report, but the main issue is really the principle of development. Clearly this is outside of the Greenbelt, but inside of the principal urban area, so where development would ordinarily be acceptable in principle, but it is allocated for employment use. And as members will note from the report, there's a balancing exercise really to be had. It is allocated for employment, but officers are satisfied that it's been adequately demonstrated that there isn't a demand for that employment use. Furthermore, of course, we do now only have a 2.52 years of housing land supply, so we're in a situation where the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies. So taking those two things together, the officer's position is that the principle of development is acceptable. Committee also need to consider the merits of the illustrative drawings and parameters plans and whether the site can acceptably accommodate the type and quantum of development that's proposed. As we've said in the report, we are content and with the type of accommodation proposed and the quantum of development, and the officers are satisfied that the illustrative layout drawings satisfactorily demonstrate that. Committee also need to be satisfied with the access arrangements, including the highways impact, that there is no highways objection to this scheme. It's understood that there would be a preference for the site in its entirety to be accessed via Corinthian Way, which is the road to the rear of Aldi, but there is no policy requirement for that. And ultimately, the access that's been proposed is acceptable in technical highway safety terms. And we do have John Hindley here from County Highways, if members have any highway questions in a moment. But as I say, as officers, we're happy with the highways arrangements and we're content that they comply with highway policy. Impact on neighbours, that's another key issue insofar as it's relevant to an outline proposal. There are some residential properties nearby, and some of which immediately adjoin the site, but we're satisfied as officers that the impact is acceptable and can be made acceptable at the reserve matters stage through sensible design. Sustainability, this is a no-gas development, and members will note that we have had details of sustainable construction matters submitted with the application, and there is a condition requiring compliance with a revised energy statement, which was submitted at a later date at the reserve matters stage. And finally, members will note from the report there's a number of, I won't go through them, Chair, but there's a number of planning obligations and the heads of terms are set out in the report. So the recommendation is to grant permission, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for a very comprehensive introduction to the site. We have no speakers from this, but so I'll go straight into members' questions. Are there any members' questions of the officer? Councillor Wheeler?
Yes, there is a question here, but it's more a point to note than anything. You missed an image, the two images of North Road West. The very last one you showed almost shows it. Had you got the picture that would have come before on, you would have noticed that the road there is flooded. That road is always flooded. Since BMW was built, they put a load of topsoil, created a bund just the other side of the hedge, which blocked a watercourse. I asked when the ASDA development went on, that could this be put right? As county council, I had that piece of road resurfaced twice, I think, because damage to the road, and still nothing. The watercourse, which runs the other side of the hedge, so the site side of the hedge, has been filled with soil and stuff, and it's never been cleared. So you will even during pretty dry weather, you will find water running down the road because there is a watercourse there that's been blocked by the BMW, and it's never been cleared. So could we sort of say, come the development, that watercourse, because I notice you've got a pool shown on the drawing at the bottom. Well, where does that water come from? Well, it should come down about the area of the hedge, and it doesn't. So that really does need taking. It's doing a lot of damage to the road, and when I was county councillor, I took a lot of complaints about it. It does need sorting.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, that sounds like an enforcement issue to me. I mean, that's something I can raise with our enforcement team. I don't see any particular need or justification or any way really that we could control that through this planning application. If there's some unauthorised dumping of material, we've got enforcement powers, and the county council have got enforcement powers to deal with that. So I can take that away, Chair.
I was told similar things when the ASDA, well, when they develop that bit, it'll all be sorted out. Well, now it's been developed, I'd like to see it sorted.
Thank you. Any other member wants any question? Councillor Baker?
I just want to ask about the conditions regarding the construction management plan. I know that's to be agreed, but I would hope we would have within that we're not having contractors' vehicles, delivery vehicles, big plant using Northwest Road as the access, and that we would condition all the heavy vehicles have to access off the more major road of the two. Is that something that can be taken on board at the condition stage? Thank
you, Chair. I mean, that controlling the routes of construction traffic is certainly within the scope of a construction management plan, so we can take that away and deal with that when the application to discharge that condition comes in.
Other members indicated, so we'll go into debate then. So open to debate. Councillor Bamford.
Thank you. I hope you'll consider this more a debate than a question. I think it is a debating concern. I'm not concerned at all about the potential for this site to be used for residential. I know it was originally scheduled for commercial use, but it seems to me to be a very good use of it. What I am concerned about are the access issues. Now, on planning view, we had the unique experience of seeing two cars passing one another on North Road West, and several other cars going along. I run along that road, or jog now, 2 or 3 times a week, and I have done for the last 40 years. I run down the centre of the road. I rarely come across a vehicle. It turned out there was actually temporary traffic lights on Grovefield Way, which the planning view bus got held up in, and actually people were using it as a rat run. So that's why planning view was atypical. It actually is a quiet country lane. Well, you saw that from the photos, I think. It's a quiet country lane. It is in the green belt. I know that to one side where this development is proposed, it's no longer in the green belt, but it is a green belt lane bounded by hedgerows, as you saw in those photos, on both sides. Corinthian Way, on the other hand, is a purpose-built 2-lane road, purpose-built to deal with all the traffic from that site. When I saw that the proposal was for access from North Road West, I was, well, staggered, I think is probably the best way to put it. Pleased we've got somebody from the highways team here, because obviously this is primarily addressed to him. So in paragraph 6.6 of the report, the highways team have indicated that Corinthian Way is designed to take a high volume of traffic, and that they were initially disappointed that the proposal from the developers was for an access from North Road West. It being an open road with a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Well, as I say, it is very rarely used by cars going at that speed. However, I understand that that is possible. So I was interested to note their concern. But what appears to have changed their mind, and I may be corrected on this in a minute, was that the developers agreed to put a pedestrian crossing at a point in the road. Now, if you look to that road, it's a quiet country lane. Have you ever seen a pedestrian crossing on a quiet country lane? Anyway, so that seems a slightly strange. A, it seems a slightly strange thing to put in place. B, it seems a slightly strange reason to change one's mind on the method of access. Now, in order to create this access, a huge length of hedgerow will be lost. The highways team require a 50-metre splay. That is a very big chunk of that hedgerow which will be lost because of the splay needed for visibility. Now, given our lecture before this meeting, this feels like a proposal going in entirely the wrong direction. There'll be a key loss of a wildlife corridor here, and with a massive biodiversity net loss. North Road West is currently part of a designated national cycle route. Surely, on such a route, it's best to keep cars to a minimum. I think there will be construction traffic, however you try to constrain it, going along North Road West, if there's access there. And the ongoing extra vehicular movements that will go into the future will, I believe, secure its demise as a haven for cyclists, runners, walkers, and the like. So I'd urge that we somehow reconsider the proposed access and whether or not it couldn't actually be better placed along Corinthian Way. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Before I pass on to any other member, could you turn your mic off? I'll ask Mr. Henley if he'd like to comment on those remarks.
Through you, Chair. Yes, it is an issue that we did raise concern about. Obviously, the extent of development that was originally granted from Corinthian Way meant that everything accessed that way, and that junction design and width, capacity, everything could be accommodated from that one site. The developer, when asked about it, was honest and said, basically, we're asking for it from this road because it makes the residential estate a nicer place to live. It's, you don't have to come past the large BMW garage. You don't have to come past the Costa Coffee in the supermarket. But in their opinion, the making of the place of the estate would be better accessed from there. Where possible, we do prefer to have separated accesses for that reason, and plus it avoids the conflict of a lot of pedestrians with large HGVs, which would be servicing the dealership and the supermarket. So there is a benefit and a risk that we have to balance, basically. So we asked the question whether they would be prepared to do it. They came back and said no. We then had to look at the access onto North Road West, and in line with the recorded speed readings, as you've said, the vehicles aren't travelling at 50 miles an hour. They're far lower, and therefore the visibility that they can actually achieve is adequate. And on balance, there is no fundamental reason why we cannot support the application in that manner. Yeah.
Thank you for that explanation. Councillor Clark.
Would highways reduce the speed limit if that access were granted, or would it remain at 50 miles an hour on, yeah?
At the present time, it's going to remain at 50 miles per hour. But the balance of that is there is no direct pedestrian access at that point. The internal paths will lead pedestrians through to a section where it's 30 miles an hour.
I'm thinking about edging out. I live off Pittville Circus Road. I don't know if you know it. I never turn right, I turn left, because since it's been resurfaced, people exceed the speed limit of 30 miles an hour. So I'm thinking of edging out, even though you have requested that the hedge be taken back, which is a good thing. It does seem rather tight for me.
There will be an extent of hedgerow removed. It's not a case of from the road, we will take it out for 50 metres in both directions. So we're not going to be losing 100 and plus metres of hedgerow. The measurement is from the edge of the highway along the verge line, and then as a triangle back to 2 metres within the site. So the width of hedgerow loss will maybe be at the most 20 metres. So it will be obvious there is an access there, but I say it's not a case of we've taken everything out at all.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeler?
Yes, well, based on what Councillor Bamford was saying, and I should have thought of it when I was talking earlier, if we are going to have access through there for vehicular traffic, bear in mind there is a watercourse, and the watercourse should be allowed to travel under the road there. At the moment, it doesn't appear there is, it's just flooded, but that they must bear that in mind, because if they just put a road in and the water can't go anywhere, this problem will never be solved.
Thank you. Councillor Al.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps controversially, I actually wish to speak in favour of this development. I think there's understandably a lot of concerns about access, and, you know, barring the unique miracle that happened on Planning View in the eyes of Councillor Bamford, I am looking at the road, I'm looking at the sort of the width of it, and I do think it's feasible, maybe not ideal, but feasible that 2 vehicles could still pass. I also, to be completely honest, do not think that our grounds for objection would hold up on appeal. I think we could object to this application, bring forward concerns about access, but the problem is, given Highways have already signed it off and approved of access, I do think we'd be sort of on the back foot. Also, bear in mind the 2-year, the 2.52 5-year housing land supply, and we really do have a great pressure to build more houses as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Bamford, do you want to come back?
I'm with Councillor Allen. I think we need to get on and try and build these houses as quickly as possible. It certainly wasn't the purpose of my earlier comments. Simply that it would be much better accessed from Corinthian Way. Call me an old cynic. It's my concern that the developers have gone for this route because it's more financially beneficial. And I would like the planning team to explore further with them whether or not they would consider a different development, along very similar lines, but simply accessed from a different point of view, because that was the view of the planning committee. I'm not at all saying that we should oppose development on this site per se. Thanks.
Thank you.
I would be
mean-
happy to put a motion if that was. I'd be happy to propose some sort of amendment to the proposal if that would help.
Okay, I mean, we have the application in front of us, which is quite clear, and the Highways Authority have given their opinions on this. Are you asking for a deferral so that the planning committee can go back to the Highways Authority, or are you just asking for a change in the proposal to access the site?
I'm not in any way criticising the Highways' view on this. I think that's I completely understand their position. What I'm saying is I think this development, we have to consider access at this point in the development cycle. If we approve this as it is, access will be given. So this is the only opportunity we have to decide to give a view on whether access is best from North Road West or from Corinthian Way. It's my view that a perfectly good scheme could be established with access from Corinthian Way, and that would be preferable for the environment. It would be a better scheme altogether. So that's, I could come up with a proposal along those lines if you think that would be helpful, Chair.
Legal officer, just to comment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, members will obviously be aware that the application is what's before them today with that particular access. There is no alternate access presented as an option for members to consider today. Therefore, members, I see it, have really two options. One is to proceed with the application as it stands, and either to vote with the officer recommendation or suggest an alternative or dismiss the application. If members are minded to consider alternative access, then the matter would need to be deferred to obtain further information. And my planning colleague may fully be aware that discussions are already being had in relation to their access, and they wouldn't be proposed by the developer. I really don't know. So essentially, to summarise, the application before you is with the access as stated before you today. I don't know if my head of planning wishes to comment.
Thank you, Chair. As I understand it, there has been discussions about the location of the access, and ultimately this is the scheme that's before committee today. It's not really open to committee to redesign the scheme or to seek to fundamentally change the means of access to the site. So what I would say, I mean, my recommendation would be if members are unhappy with the access, then it's obviously it would be appropriate for members to vote against the recommendation. But as officers, we're perfectly happy with the means of access from Growfield Way, from North Road West, and it complies with planning policy.
Chair, if I may, sorry, Chair, if I may through you, just to remind members, of a costs warning. If a decision is made and there's no evidence to support that decision, then you expose the authority to risk of costs on any appeal.
Thank you for that. Yeah. So that you've heard the options. Councillor Bamford, I understand you're not happy with the particular access. I would guard against deferral. So the option really is whether you refuse the application on the basis that you're unhappy with that access, unless you particularly want to put any particular
No, thank you, Chair.
Other
for-
idea
sorry,
forward.
For that clarification. I understand what my options are. It seems the only option I really have is to vote against, which I will do. Thank you. And I would encourage others to do the same.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wheeler?
Yes, my view on that is, yes, I would prefer to see the road that was designed to access this whole site used for that. It was a lot of road maintenance to get that access in Corinthian Way, and I think it should be used that way. And I would be inclined to refuse on that basis. There is no reason why it should come, other than the fact that maybe it is nicer to enter the estate from that side. And it's only 60 properties, so wouldn't be a great number. However, my feeling is that if refusal goes through just on balance, we are going to lose, because the applicant's going to say, well, no, that's what I want. And as we've already been told, if this goes to appeal, we are likely to fail. So either we all vote for or we all vote against. I think that's the way I felt about it.
Councillor Andrews?
Yes, much as I don't understand the reasoning from the developers for the access road, I will be supporting it, mainly because of our low housing issue. Councillor Allen mentioned the 2.5-year housing supply. I see there is affordable, and I'm presuming social housing within that. If you're on a social housing list, we don't have a 2.5-year housing supply issue. We have a 0-year housing supply issue. So this is absolutely fine in terms of the numbers. I still don't understand why the developers have such a big downer on going down Corinthian Way, but I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other member? Councillor Bailey.
Well, only, Chair, because I would be really concerned if this was refused. And so, I think we can all have some sympathy with the comments that have been made. And you look at the pictures of that lovely country lane, you say, oh, what a shame. But, there'll be plenty of lanes of that size which access industrial estates or whatever it might be. We're talking about 60 houses. The amount of traffic that's going to generate is not significant. It's not like there's a commercial operation going on there. And I actually get the idea of separating out a residential use and a commercial use. That to me makes great sense. Otherwise, you could see commercial vehicles going down through the housing area, parking up, having their sandwiches, and all sorts of that's the sort of stuff going on. So to me, it makes great sense to have a residential development and a commercial development with no access in between. And it's perhaps fortunate that there is that alternative access available. So I'm strongly in support of the scheme. I think it's a great scheme. I know we're only talking about access, but the points have already been made. Housing is so important for our town, and 40% affordable is even more important. So I am happy to support the scheme as proposed, and I hope members will do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Henley.
If I can just clarify, there is going to be pedestrian access from the site onto Corinthian Way. It's just purely vehicular access that isn't that way. So people can walk from the estate through to the convenience store and the coffee and the nursery, and if they want a BMW or a Mini, whatever, as well. So it's not a complete severance. There will be an access route that way, rather than them having to come down, cross over the lane, and then walk up the single-sided footpath. So there is alternatives.
No, I was referring, John, to commercial traffic going down there, through there, and parking in the residential estate and so on.
So there will be vehicle separation, but people separation is okay. It will not be that. Okay. No other member? Do you want to go to the vote on this? It is an outline application. We will be having reserved matters come back to us at some point. It is subject to a 106 agreement. So would you all like to vote on the machine? That's everybody, I think. So we have 1 against and 9 for. So it has been approved, and it will come back to us at some point with the reserved matters to deal with. And that includes the changes to the conditions that you've all seen. I hope you're happy with that. Okay, so that's approved. Right. We can now move on to appeal updates to note. There are no other items which I consider need urgent decision. So item 9 is a briefing note, as you've heard earlier on in discussion about the land supply. And I'm sure this is going to feature quite a lot in our future discussions, so please note. So with that, then I close the meeting. The next scheduled meeting will be the 13th of February. Okay, thank you all very much.